This channel is only possible thanks to direct contributions from viewers like Kronos,
Karazhan Magi,
Argus,
Milk,
Bleed Red, Christopher Welch, and you. If you'd like to contribute to making more videos like this possible, you can do so for as little as $1 a month on Patreon, or by buying a t-shirt at the merch store. Thanks a bunch, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hey gamers, Taz here, and today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. This is more of a speculatory video, where I'm going to present something of a pet theory that I've held on to for a really long time when it comes to the nature of paradox space and Sburb, but which I don't really think has very much in the way of hard evidence or textual confirmation. It's not even particularly plot relevant to anything in Homestuck or any of its follow-up products. But it influences a lot of how I see paradox space, and when I talk to her about it, my friend Joy, who's editing this video by the way, hi Joy, found it interesting too, so I thought I would share it with all of you. So this basically concerns the fundamental nature of the alpha timeline, and how it relates to the nature of paradox space's self-propagation. The general view that the fandom has always had about the alpha timeline is that it is defined by being, well, alpha. While there's a variety of multiple timelines out there in paradox space, ultimately, almost all of those timelines are doomed, and there's only one true alpha timeline for any given Sburb session or universe. Now, to an extent, according to what we see in Homestuck, that's obviously true. Sburb needs certain things to happen in order to ensure that it's going to be played, and the variables that can be put in place to ensure Sburb gets played can include even an entire planet's history. But Homestuck also gives us an unusually strict definition for a doom timeline, which is simply a timeline that fails to meet the parameters for its own existence, causing a paradox. And it is possible for me to imagine a situation where paradox space exists in a context without a paradox in it, in the present moment. It's just not a scenario that we see in Homestuck itself, due to the nature of Lord English's antagonism. Let me try and explain what I mean. Imagine a scenario where Sburb gets played, but without a figure like Lord English orchestrating it from the shadows. In Homestuck, any deviation from the story's plot results in a doom timeline, because the alpha timeline leads to the creation of Lord English, who is in turn necessary to justify the existence of all of the Sburb sessions that we see play out. Without those bigger, universe-transcending demands in place on the timeline, what would we see happen? What demands would Skaya and the Horror Terrors temporally place upon their heroes? Well, we can assume that the game would need to make sure that its players actually exist, and that their society exists. So there would need to be some time loop blocks up to the Reckoning or so, ensuring that meteors get sent back to create the planet's first guardians, single out and banish the exiles, create the players, and deposit the Frog Temple. But once those things are done, what comes next? Suddenly, there's nothing else that specifically needs to happen in order to justify that specific reality to continue existing. And with no seemingly arbitrary checks to fail, there would suddenly stop being a reason for a particular branch of reality to be doomed. Unless one or more time players in that particular branch of reality decided to get too reckless and sloppy with their time powers, I guess. That means that close to the end of Sburb, the game ought to temporally blossom into an almost infinite number of equally viable possible timelines, representing various different outcomes for the game and the reality that exists after it. Not all of them would be happy ones from the player's perspective, and not all of them would even be successful in ensuring that the players actually survive, but a large number of them could be, which could then each result in a new universe. To me, that makes a lot more sense than the strict linearity implied by the alpha timeline as we see it in Homestuck. Especially because Sburb, or at least Skaya through the kernel sprites, suggests that the players themselves are responsible for choosing the kind of ending that they get, and that the nature of the reward they receive depends upon their own choices. That means that any individual instance of Sburb might be something like a Schrodinger's box when viewed from the outside. a complex space of possibility that contains both failure and success states, neither of which become fully actualized until the players inside actually experience one or the other, even though in the grand scheme of the macrocosmic reality they're all experiencing, they're ultimately experiencing both. Not only is this better for the players than a predetermined fixed outcome, but it also makes more sense to me from Spurb's perspective, since it would ultimately result in more timelines where universes get created, which ultimately means exponentially more universes spawned, where Sburb then gets to spread again and again in different ways. And there's more. In my view, this logic also exponentially increases the amount of potential sessions Sburb might spawn based off a single planet. For example, take Beta Earth. If this is how Sburb actually works, then the fact that the rest of humanity wasn't generated by Sburb wouldn't matter nearly as much as the fact that they made it into the game and are now empowered to make choices within it. If you think about it, everyone assumes that Fedora Freak died on that god tier slab because they assumed that his timeline was doomed. But actually, the only thing that log implies is that he successfully god tiers. There could be hundreds, if not thousands, of survivors from Sburb being played in the beta's Earth, thanks to Grandpa spreading it so far and wide, before the 4 big meteors of the kids resulted in the complete obliteration of humanity. That might mean that even if it was a gamble and completely happened by accident, according to his own buffoonish perspective, Grandpa might have saved a good chunk of humanity. By contrast, the fact that Scrub could only be disseminated among a small group of trusted friends is kind of a karmic justice on Alternia in and of itself. Less trust among its people resulted in fewer sessions, resulted in fewer trolls ultimately surviving out in Paradox space. This could also be why the Scratch as a mechanic exists at all. It acts as an exponential amplifier, potentially doubling the number of timelines that can result in success. All in all, each session being doomed to only have one possible result from beginning to end just doesn't really line up with either how the game is structured or with the ultimate goals of the game, either from a developmental angle in terms of allowing the heroes to develop into their highest selves, or from a universal biology angle. But what do you guys think? Am I onto something here, or am I officially thinking way too hard about this stuff? Let me know in the comments. I hope you found this bit of Sburb navel-gazing interesting, and until next time, keep rising. Huge thanks go out to my patrons for making this video possible. If you want to help support the channel and come join us at our awesome and growing Discord community, feel free to join us for as little as $1 a month. You can also find me on the r/Hiveswap Reddit and Discord. That's all for now, so thank you again, and as always, keep rising.